Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we are going to review the 7th series from the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, consisting of the Powers of Pain and Dusty Rhodes. Now, I did say that I was probably just going to look at just the 3 figures today, make a quick video, but I've decided against that. I'm actually going to do a much more thorough review video because I do want to actually look at some of the more comparable figures. So I'm going to make this a much longer video. So let's take a quick look at these figures and then kind of compare them to some of the additional figures on the open market. All right, getting myself situated. So I actually did a live show just last night, and you know what, for whatever reason, man, I actually like this setup a little bit better. Now, the last several review videos, I haven't been on screen when I've been doing these reviews. I just been kind of like showcasing the figures themselves. But for this particular video, I do kind of want to be face first with you guys while I showcase these figures. Just a little bit more special with this particular set of figures. So obviously the first figure that's most important to me, or most special, is Warlord. Now with these figures that we're looking at, they're actually both positives and negatives. And as I'm talking, I'm going to kind of show you the figure in case. So with all of these companies, and I've said it before, and I will probably continue to say it until my throat explodes. Man, guys, I cannot iterate this enough. It is driving me nuts when Epic Toys and Random Treasures and the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, who else is out there? I'm trying to think of all these different companies. I think, I don't know, Zombie Sailors do it? I don't think Zombie Sailors yet, but a whole slew of companies. I understand you want to release the best figures available, best characters, the most coveted characters, but it is kind of frustrating. I love Demolition. I love Road Warriors / Legion of Doom. I love Powers of Pain. British Bulldogs. These are all very coveted characters, very coveted tag teams. But man, when every single company on the planet, it seems like, are constantly making the exact same characters, and as fans, we support these companies, we love their figures, of course we're going to want to buy their figures, but at the same time, we want to see differentiation. We want to see different characters. We want to see characters that haven't already been released. I get it. If Random Treasures releases a Warlord figure, for example, and Big Rubber Guys releases their Warlord, it's 2 different companies, 2 different body poses, etc. They're 2 unique releases. I got it. But at the same time, you still have Warlord, right? Plus, you got Warlord from original LJN. Now, Random Treasures, for example, that doesn't count because their Warlord is original LJN-esque. So, but I'm just throwing that out there as an example. But the point that I'm trying to make is you're constantly re-releasing the exact same characters over and over again. I just wish these companies would come out with something different. The one great thing I've always admired about the Big Rubber Guys, or from the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast in general, with a lot of these companies, Zombie Sailors is one of those companies I kind of throw in that list, is the fact that, yes, they do have these licensing agreements, major grapplers and gimmicks, etc. Because they have these licensing agreements, the money they make from these sales do actually go back to the estates, either to the wrestlers themselves or to the families of said wrestler, a ring announcer, interviewer, etc. So that's awesome. But when you look at like Ram Treasures, as you know, as a perfect example, they're customizers. And because they're customizers, they don't have to go through the red tape of getting those permissions, and they can basically mold their figures as needed and do what they need to and get you an awesome product. And we're going to look at some of their amazing figures as well in this video. But back to the big rubber guys. This is obviously Warlord in individual or loose display. And I saw a video from Fig Heel, and he pointed something out that I thought was very important. So when you look at the side of the pants, normally when you look at these figures where it says Power of Pain, on the figure it does not say power, it says were. So I guess like back in the 80s, what have you, when these characters, when the wrestlers were taking photographs, when obviously when the cameramen were taking photos, the way that the trunks were kind of like overlapping the pants, the P and the O were obviously being covered up, so all you saw was the WER, and I'm like, you know what, that is awesome. So the fact that they had that attention to detail to cover the W or the P and the O was freaking awesome. And I thought that was freaking clever. Now, as I guess there are fans, and I guess I could be one of those fans, the fact that we don't have the full word on there might drive us freaking insane. But now that I understand the history of something like that and kind of looking at that, it makes sense. And I can actually appreciate it a lot more. And maybe I even enjoy that a lot more now. So you do have Were of Pain, and of course his full Warlord on the outside. Another thing I really appreciate with Big Rubber guys, and I've said this plenty about their figures, the rubber. The rubber is something that you never in a million years will ever have to worry about getting damaged. Okay? This is some of the strongest, sturdiest freaking rubber you will ever find on an action figure. This crap is absolutely fantastic. I love the Big Rubber guys for what they have done with these particular figures. Now, as a fan, I can appreciate that, but as someone who's been collecting, and again, I did not grow up with LJNs as a kid. I only started I only knew about LJNs, like I think I only found out about them maybe a few years ago. So I only started collecting LJNs at the tail end of 2021. So when I say LJN to me is relatively fresh and new, I look at LJN wrestling superstars from a fresh and new perspective. So in my eyes, I'm looking at them as like a fresh, brand new collection, right? So I look at my LJN collection the same way I kind of look at Big Rubber guys. I still kind of look at them as new figures in essence, kind of. So, but, you know, fans of vintage 1980 figures, you're going to look at the rubber of the figures, and then you're going to look at the rubber of these guys, and you're like, well, I'm a kid of the 70s. I'm a kid of the early 80s. I've had these vintage 1980 figures. I was 5 years old, 6 years old, 7, 8, 10, 14, whatever. And I played with these LJN figures. And this is the sort of rubber I'm accustomed playing with. And now I'm looking at this rubber, and the arms are like almost impossible to move. You know, the grip of the figure, it's super hard. It's not the same rubber. It's not the same playability of the figure. So that sucks. So there really is a toss-up. I can really make an argument from both sides of the spectrum. So the positive of the rubber is also a negative, depending on that person's perspective. You can love the hardness of the rubber. You can hate the hardness of the rubber. Again, it depends on that person's perspective, how they feel about the the movement or whatnot. These figures, like I said, they're not quite what you would get from the WCW Galoob line, because those figures are pretty much stationary. You were not going to move those figures, not one bit. At least the rubber on these are somewhat movable. But if you look at the LGNs, at least the rubber, you could do something with them. I've also noticed that on the figure collection store, on Grapplers and Gimmicks, on Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, they've also started incorporating these stencils. I love that. In 1989, when LJN sold to the Canadian company Grand Toys, and they started incorporating the stencils on the bottom of the feet, those LJN Grand Toys figures, once you look at those stencils, I've said it before, you can have a 1989 original Andre the Giant, for example, mint condition. No paint upgrade whatsoever, but maybe something happened to the feet. Maybe somebody glued the feet to keep them standing up or something, and the stencil's completely gone. Again, original paint, 100% mint, except he's missing the stencil. That figure is like a $150 figure maybe. With stencil, he's like a $600 figure. That stencil makes all the difference in the world. And I kind of feel like these stencils right here are making the prices of these figures 20 years from now, 30 years from now. I think that these figures are going to like skyrocket in price just because of that little design. Now, I've been wanting to talk about comparison. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, man. You can sit there and move the original figures up and down like crazy, right? So these Grand Toy stencils make all the difference in the world. You can move these, like I said, bam. Feet obviously can move somewhat, but hardness. As someone who is a play first guy or pose first guy, I never had these as a kid. I got these. I didn't start collecting wrestling figures until I was 36 years old. I never had any interest in collecting. I definitely never had any interest in collecting wrestling figures. But you kind of watch some YouTube videos, you start feeling nostalgic, you start seeing other people's passion, and it's like, man, you know what? That passion you start kind of, it rubs off on you. You start thinking about your own memories and your own passions for, like, my passion was Hasbro figures. And it's like, you know what? Yeah. I remember what I grew up watching, and I love that stuff. Absolutely, it fell in line with what I remember and what I really appreciated. So, and now today, I'm about one of these biggest fans ever. And you look at this collection, it shows. Warlord, one of the top 10 greatest LGN figures ever made. From Big Rubber Guys, this is a fantastic figure. The original Warlord, in comparison, 100% trumps what the Big Rubber Guys did. Not a bad figure. Don't get me wrong. I am not hating on this figure not one bit. It's an excellent piece. I am glad to have it. I still would choose the original Grand Toys Warlord over the new release. And I don't know, man. I kind of, because the new Big Rubber Guys is kind of like an orange colored scheme, where at least you had like more of like a brown skin tone. And I really like the fact that it's got like a nice little oily. You look at his skin, I don't want to say oily, but the shininess of the figure, it's spectacular. But even the dual hair color, the orangeness on Big Rubber Guys compared to the brown, I even like the head a little bit better on the LJN Grand Toys figure better. So yeah, I think LJN Grand Toys is the superior figure there. And like I said, I like the rubber better. I like the pose better. So, but one upgrade, big rubber guys, the pants. So extra design. I'm all about graphics. The pants with the extra design, that's awesome. So that is a huge bonus. So that is definitely big. And ooh, that's intriguing. When we get to Barbarian, that's going to be an interesting concept as well. So let's actually move on to Barbarian. So this is the Barbarian figure, mint on card. Oh, you know what? I also noticed that the Warlord did not have the little bicep built onto his on his LJN figure, and those actually are built on. Those aren't they don't feel painted on. They actually feel like they're built on too, so that's pretty nice. But that's Warlord, or excuse me, Barbarian, mint on card. You kind of see a difference between Warlord and Barbarian. So a lot of these figures, you know how I feel about these poses. I hate them. It gives you like that Ken Patera type pose. Anytime you see like Macho Man or Ken Patera, stuff like that, I despise those LJN type poses. They're despicable. Anything from LJN Series 1 with like, Hulk Hogan type pose, right? Andre the Giant, Big John Studd. Later on with Kamala, those are the premier poses. Greg Valentine, Big Boss Man, those are the poses you want to utilize. The Ultimate War, those are poses that actually are serviceable. This right here, these type poses, these destroy action figures. So I will never be a fan of that. But again, solid rubber. But I kind of noticed pushing back on here, it's actually really squishy in the back of the figure. So that's kind of interesting. But again, the little built on right here on the bicep, the little wrist guards, they do appear to be built on. They're not painted or anything. Good face, awesome face paint. And I was kind of looking at the legs. I was thinking that these were very similar pants or whatnot, but when you kind of look at like the boots, for example, like Warlord, he doesn't have the same boots as the Barbarian here. Barbarian with the buckles. So that's pretty interesting. Now, Barbarian, it's very minuscule writing, but he does have Barbarian going down the leg. And once again, whir of pain down the leg. So that's pretty fantastic. Now, about, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago or so, from Random Treasures, they did create their own Barbarian. Now, if I did have a downside about the Barbarian from Random Treasures, the skin tone was, I guess, too brownish. And this is at a time when a lot of Random Treasure figures, they were just starting out, and with a lot of companies, when you're just starting to make your figures, it's a learning curve. Look at Grapples and Gimmicks. Ahmed Johnson. Beautiful figure on card. One of the best aesthetically looking figures on card ever. You take it out of the package, that figure crumbled in your hand. Disappointing. Smoke Train. Looked adequate, but you take him out of the card, you hold him in your hand, like, what the? It looked like, I don't even know how to describe that figure. Mabel and Mo, probably two of my all-time favorite wrestling action figures ever, but I always kind of looked at them and like, hey man, these figures kind of look like clay. But today, when I look at grapplers and gimmicks, I easily say that these figures are second only to Hasbro among what I classify as Hasbro style figures. So grapplers and gimmicks have easily learned over time from making their figures. So the rubber may not be like the most perfect, but it's a good, strong, sturdy rubber, right? The skin is perfectly fine. I mean, I've never had any problems with the skin tone or the rubber. And I've always said that the Random Treasures Barbarian is easily one of the most perfect wrestling action figures ever made. Period. Point blank, period. Now, kind of same issue here. It's very small Barbarian writing. But one of the things I've noticed on this one, it actually says the full word powers. Where, where here it just says were. So, now here where they actually throw in the extra detail with the buckles and whatnot. No buckles. So both figures, they have their own attributes where it's a little bit better. One is better than the other. I like the little built-on here. And again, with Random Treasures, they have the little built-on. It's not painted on. Same thing with the wrist guards and whatnot. But I think the head mold on Big Rubber Guys might be a little bit better with the hair. I mean, if I'm looking at a figure that I prefer more, Random Treasures easily has the leg up. I like the rubber, which is, again, a much more movable figure and whatnot. Better pose. I will take the play pose of this figure a million times out of a million over this. In terms of purchasing price, I mean, 3 of these for the price of this. So that right there is, that right there is speaks volumes. So that hurts this value. But like I said, this has been one of my all-time favorite figures ever. And I can never hate on this figure. It's been one of my favorite purchases ever. Like I said, one of my favorites. So, awesome Barbarian figure. I mean, it's the value, the purchasing price is right. The rubber is perfectly solid. The only negative I've said about this figure really is fighting pose. But everything else, incredible. Last figure we're looking at, American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. One of the things I really like about this figure is they continue on with the birthmark on his side here. I think one of the first figures I ever saw of Dusty Rhodes, obviously, was the Hasbro. Now, as a kid, I never saw, I think Dusty Rhodes came out in Series 2. Now, as a kid, we had several figures from Series 1, a ton of figures from Series 2, no Hasbros from Series 3, and 3 figures from Series 4, and that's it. But until I started collecting wrestling figures towards the tail end of 21, unless I had the figures as a kid, I didn't know about any of the other figures, right? So the first time I ever saw any of the other Hasbro figures was when I picked them up as an adult collector. So But that was like that Hasbro figure was the first first Dusty Rhodes figure I ever saw. And obviously since then I picked up like Jack's classic superstars and whatnot. So, I've gotten quite a number of Dusty Rhodes figures since. And this one is an absolute perfect addition to the collection. Not only do I really enjoy that birthmark addition to the figure, but when I think about these particular boots, it takes me right back to the natural Dustin Rhodes, his WCW Series 2 UK exclusive Galoob figure with those beautiful cowboy boots. It says Rhodes on the right boot, and, well, actually it says Rhodes on both sides of the boots. And those are absolute gorgeous designs, okay? Those actually might be the best freaking boots of the entire Big Rubber Guys whole entire roster. So that is absolutely insanely good. And even the elbow pad, that is gorgeous, okay? That is a beautiful shade of green. Good looking figure. You got Dusty Rhodes on the trunks, DR. The only downside is just simply how close inward his hands are. I mean, if his hands were like this, forget 10 out of 10. This would be a 20 out of 10. This is a fantastic piece. Now, again, we're making a lot of comparisons, right? So we bring up Random Treasures Dusty Rhodes. And I said that the Random Treasures Dusty Rhodes was one of those figures that could potentially be another, in my estimation, one of the greatest wrestling action figures ever made. And this was a figure I think came out sometime last year, I believe. Or did it come out in 2024? No, I don't think it came out in 24. I think it came out in 23. And like I said, among Ram Treasures exclusives, Zeus, it really is the best figure that they have. But Dusty Rhodes is, if not number 2, maybe their number 3 or number 4 best figure. But I think it's probably their second best. And he is another one of those figures with an absolutely incredible pair of boots. Beautiful green elbow pad. And even throws in the birthmark, right? Now, all of these figures from Big Rubber Guys, they all come in with those beautiful stencils on the bottom of the feet. I love that a lot. Now, Ram Treasures Dusty Rhodes, fighting pose all day long. Birthmark, I give that a huge bonus to Big Rubber Guys. Boots, I give it to Big Rubber Guys. Rubber. See, rubber on both figures is amazing. Because rubber on Ram Treasures, obviously, because it's not as hard, it's more movable, but it's still like really thick, hard rubber, so you're not worried about damaging or ripping this rubber or anything like that. So it doesn't have to be like crazy solid hard like this one. So I'm good either way. The thickness or hardness of the rubber on either figure is perfectly fine. These are both gorgeous figures. Either figure is neck and neck. This really is a draw. This is an impossible decision to say, hey, which one I like better. Gun to the head, if I had to choose, I'd probably go with Random Treasures. I think this one was, again, a flawless figure. But this is, after all, a Big Rubber Guys review video, right? And what you get from the 3 figures from Series 7 was absolutely incredible. And I keep calling it Series... Is it Series 7? So Series 5 British Bulldogs... Yeah, it's got to be Series 7, because Series 6 was Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Magnum TA. Yeah, so this was Series 7. And incredible. So, ever since... I think ever since Series 6, I've been buying duplicates of these guys. So, generally I buy singles, and I keep them mint on card, but ever since Series 6, I've been buying two of each. So I have, obviously, my mint on card, and then the second one I plan on doing in my storage room, kind of like what I'm doing here with the Remcos, right? Where I'm going to have my mint on card, but I'm going to have like a second display. So at some point, I want to do the same thing with the big rubber guys, what I'm doing with my LJN wall, and kind of have all of the loose big rubber guy figures displayed as well. But I'm not going to go back and buy all of Series 1s through 5. Well, I actually got blue pants British Bulldogs loose. I got white and blue pants mint on card, but I got blue pants loose, so Series 5 is okay. So Series 1 through 4, but I'm not doing that. Right now, the only way to buy those is on eBay or Mercari. I'm not doing that. They're selling for like $200. Insane. But yeah, that is a goal in the future. Obviously, I can't do that down here. There's just nowhere to put them. Now, unless I move that shoe rack right here at the foot of the stairs and put that in the garage. But then I'd have to like put some kind of light above it so I can really shine on it, make it look real nice. But yeah, this really was a really excellent collection of figures, guys. I really wish that, again, we could get different figures, different set of characters that we don't already have among the LJN line. Now, Warlord, we already had part of LJN. Now, Barbarian, as you guys know, when you look at the back of LJN/Grand Toys 1989, it did not say Warlord. It said Powers of Pain. And we were originally supposed to have Barbarian as part of that line. Now, obviously, by going to Grand Toys, and they canceled the line after Series 6, you got the release of Warlord, but no Barbarian. So, being able to add both members of Powers of Pain to the collection, that is insane. That's awesome. I kind of feel like Big Rubber Guys is going to do the same thing, and they are going to add a lot of the same characters that maybe Ram Treasure's been doing in the past, and bringing you guys like Brother Love, Bad News. Well, actually, Bad News Brown is already on the list, so he's coming too. But I think Brother Love might be coming in the future. I see that happening. I see Bushwhackers coming. So, yeah, I think that's probably what they're going to try and end up doing. Just my personal opinion. But guys, I know it's a longer video, but this was still a fun video. I think a lot of people will really enjoy this one. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And talk to you in the comments, and see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.